I'd like to call this meeting to order, a regular meeting of the West Sacramento Economic Development and Housing Commission. Commissioner DiCamillo, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the January 23rd, 2019 meeting of the Economic Development and Housing Commission. Tonight's agenda is available on the counter along with the request to speak cards. A reminder to everyone that requests to speak cards should be completed and turned into the commission clerk. If you wish to speak to the commission regarding an item on tonight's agenda, please write the item number on your card. If you wish to speak on items not on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of this commission, please do so during the general administration section of tonight's agenda. All speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and televised, so all speakers, in order to be recognized, must be called by the vice chair and come forward to the microphone. Speaking in public may cause some individuals to be uncomfortable, so everyone is asked to be professional and respectful at all times. So with that, I'll take item 1, which is going to be the swearing in of this commission. Do we rise?
I state your name.
I, Chris White,
Ron Price.
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I will take this obligation freely
that I will take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. The next order of business is the election or selection of officers. I'm going to ask the commissioners for nominations, and there doesn't need to be a second. So nominations for the chair.
I would like to nominate Ron, graduate into chair position.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for the chair position? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So the nominations were closed and Ron Price was selected as chair. The next order of business is the selection of the vice chair. So again, I'm asking for nominations. There doesn't need to be a second for vice chair. And I would like to nominate Chris White as the vice chair. Are there any other nominations for the vice chair position? Being none, the nominations are closed for vice chair. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Being no opposition, welcome.
Woohoo!
As the vice chair, Chris. How many years have you been on this commission?
A few.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. Okay, moving on to the next item is, are there any presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of this commission? The commission is prohibited from discussing issues not on the agenda brought to them at this time. According to state law, the Brown Act, items must first be noticed on the agenda before any discussion or action. Are there any presentations? Thank you. There being none, we'll move on to item 2, which is the consent calendar. Consideration of approval of the November 28th, 2018 Economic Development and Housing Commission meeting minutes. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
A second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of approval?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? The minutes of November the 28th, 2018 are approved. Moving on to item number 3, the regular agenda item. Public hearing to announce the availability of 2019 Community Development Block Grant Funding. Ms. Whitaker, how are you this evening?
I am well, thank you. So good evening, Commissioners and Chair. I am here to announce the availability of the city's 2019 Community Development Grant Fund and also solicit comments from the Commission in regard to goals for 2019 funding. After the brief presentation, staff respectfully requests that the Commission open a public hearing to consider comments from the public in regard to this item. Okay, so to begin my presentation, CDBG funds must be used to meet at least 3 national objectives. Those 3 national objectives include benefit to low and moderate income persons or households, elimination of slums and blight, or urgent need. It is important to note that 70% of a jurisdiction's allocation must be used to benefit the low to moderate income households. Excuse me. All right. Jurisdictions receiving CDBG funding are required to create what's called a 5-year consolidated plan. 5-year consolidated plans outline goals to be accomplished within the community within that 5-year time frame. The city's current consolidated plan, 2016 through 2020, identified 4 goals, and those 4 goals were divided into high priority goals and low priority goals. The high priority goals included reducing the incidence and impact of homelessness, achieving goals identified within Washington Realized, and low priority goals included strengthening economic opportunities for lower income households and affirmatively furthering fair housing. So, for each year of the 5-year consolidated plan, an annual action plan must be created that basically details how that year's funding will further the goals of the 5-year consolidated plan. As you can see, we're currently within our 4th year of the consolidated plan and are in the stages of developing the 2019 annual action plan. So for 2019, the city is anticipating an allocation similar to last year's allocation, which was about $446,000. When you minus 20% for general admin and you add about $130,000 for anticipated program income, we'll have about $487,000 available for 2019. So one of the recommended actions for tonight is basically for the commission to give staff recommendations as to which goals you would like the 2019 annual action plan to address. And those goals I've provided again, so those were the high priority goals and low priority goals. And the second action is that after this presentation, the commission open a public hearing to solicit comment from the public in regards to this item as well. So this concludes my presentation, my brief presentation, and if you have any further questions, staff will be available to answer those. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Whitaker. I don't have any speaker cards. Oh. Thank you. So I've got 2 cards to speak on this item. First one, is it Sarah Brunel?
Yeah, Brunel.
Brunel? Please come to the microphone. Good evening, thank you.
Good evening, thank you so much for allowing me to speak. Are my 3 minutes starting? Okay. Okay, so thank you for having me. I run the West Sacramento Urban Farm Program here in West Sacramento. I'm here to discuss just the critical need to improve additional programs for the lowest income members of our community to access produce that's grown within these projects, including Meals on Wheels. We're also trying to launch a feasibility study to do a food as medicine program with different community medical providers such as Communicare. I'm in discussion with them right now. But these lack implementation funding. Our target in seeking funding is to expand food access in 3 different ways. It would be teaching the public about growing food as well as cooking food, and then also making the 25,000 pounds of produce that we're growing on our farms in West Sac more accessible to those who need it the most. We're also doing a lot of workforce development. We work with the Parolee Reentry Program through SCOE. We work with TAL, which is transitioning to adult living. It's youth with disabilities getting workforce experience. We work with about 800 to 1,000 community members every year trying to do workforce development activities. However, those activities don't actually generate any revenue, and so we want to find a sustainable way to grow our way to interact with the lowest income members of our community through workforce development as well as expanding food access. I've been doing some research about the passing of SB 1000, which is the Planning for Healthy Communities Act, which I believe is going to be implemented as soon as any city revises its general plan. And I know that the SB 1000, it's primarily trying to help food access and food security in an environmentally just, with environmental justice framework. And just keeping that in mind, in terms of the community development block grant funding, it does provide the city an opportunity to possibly support that type of programming in advance and show that these types of programs such as farm stands and local agriculture, which would meet the essential needs of the SB 1000 policy. And so, yeah, I have 44 seconds, okay. This year we have 9 micro enterprises that are incubating through the West Sac Urban Farm Program. If these farms are able to thrive more, farmers can employ and train more youth. We already have internships and youth that have been directly employed as full-time employees through our farm at Fiery Ginger Farm, which is at Yolo High School. And the more trained workers, the more productive the farm can be, and the higher efficiency leads to higher crop yields, which then leads to more crops that can be accessed by our local community. I'm hoping to create sort of like a cyclical wheel of turning these vacant lots into places that are actually providing a massive amount of revitalization, not just environmentally by not having to do weed abatement through Roundup and treat them with green, sustainable land management practices.
Thank you. Do
Okay.
the commissioners have any questions of this speaker?
Sarah, we all love your program, and you've just been so fabulous in our community. The CBD, I never get the letters like all these years, and they won't roll off my tongue. The Community Development Block Grant has these 4 principles that we have to do.
Yeah.
How would your program fit into one of those 4 principles?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of strengthening economic opportunities for low-income households, that's something that we really want to target, mostly through, again, the TAL program, so working with young adults with developmental or mental disabilities, as well as working with SCOE to provide more opportunities for parolees re-entering into the system to actually get job placement. We don't actually train people to become farmers necessarily, but the the reentry program is always looking for opportunities to get some of the soft skills that are needed in order to make referrals to Caltrans, which is probably, as you all know, like one of the highest employers of folks with records. I'm also looking into other organizations that are working with low-income folks who have a really difficult time finding places to get general job skills training. And I think the urban farms could really supply a lot of that, as well as then providing sort of through the knowledge of the social determinants of health, needing access to healthy food in order to actually thrive as just a generally well-rounded human. I feel that not just the job skills aspect, but in terms of reducing the impact of the difficulties of being a low-income member of the community, having access to healthy food will help people generally thrive more. So I realize that homelessness is like a huge part of that. And I can't remember the name of the project, but I'm about to meet with Back Streets, or the folks who are coming around.
I think. Well, the Streets team.
Yes, exactly.
Downtown
So I'm about
team.
to meet with the person who's running that program to try and interact with that homelessness training or job possibilities program, and then also try and link those folks to having greater food access. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Do you work with,
Right there.
there it is, okay. Thank you, sorry about that.
No.
Very nice presentation. Do you work with Mary Kimball from the Center for Land-Based Learning?
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
Do already, okay.
Mhm. Yeah, so actually the West Sac Urban Farm Program is a part of the Center for Land-Based Learning.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just going to mention in terms of the connection to homelessness, one program you might look into is Santa Cruz has a homeless garden
Yes.
project. So you probably are
Totally.
familiar, but
Yep, yeah, they've actually come to us for some consulting about how to develop more of the lots, just because of the expense of actually converting vacant lots into these programs. So yeah, we do provide a lot of consultation services to a lot of these programs, and what we're hoping to do is find a way to sustainably engage more with homeless and also low-income folks. So, yeah.
You mentioned cooking.
Yeah.
Is that a job training skill, or is that more related to healthy eating?
Well, I do see a sort of, I mean, I'm looking at this, I don't know how familiar everyone is with just the whole, what's it called? Now I'm having a blank because I just was about to say it. The social determinants of health ideology, just sort of, that your zip code matters so much to your life expectancy, and about the ways in which all of these things, I see them as being so intertwined, as catching these folks in the upstream parts of, can we get folks to eat healthier so that they have a more vibrant physical body that then is hopefully going to lead to higher employment? So I don't really know how much opportunities there would be for adults in the cooking classes. However, we are partnered with the cafe program here. So Cheryl Sutton, who runs the cooking program at Bright, we have, the farmers are going out there and they're doing, teaching kids how to make bone broth out of the chickens that are being raised at the farm on Yolo High School property. So we do have this sort of like partnership already going with the school district, and using the produce from the farm, that the kids are actually going out there every day and working with these chickens, and then, well, morbidly having the feet and bones turn into bone broth in the kitchen. But we do have some full cycle sort of things that we're trying to launch right now with the cooking, and hopefully that would lead to more of a career track for younger people.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Bell, please.
Thank you for your presentation and all that you're doing with our urban farms and stuff. That's so awesome. Thank you, thank you. My question was, what is your financial need? You didn't really speak about that, and how do you see CBDG funds, if we could squeeze it in?
Totally.
What is that dollar?
Yeah, I mean, ideally right now, what would be ideal is anywhere between $40,000 to $80,000, which I know is, I didn't realize exactly what numbers you guys were working with, because this is the first time I saw the number. Mostly to just help support it takes so much time and collaboration to build the partnerships between things like the street team and the other organizations, just growing program and creating curriculum for SCOE, for the parolee reentry folks to have a more meaningful experience, as well as just providing more in-depth classes and workshops that would be open and subsidized to the community to access for free. So it would be for staff time, programming, materials, and then also just the time it takes to create a network, a solid network that could actually self-sustain eventually. And hopefully the goal for me would be that the partnerships that we're building with these organizations would eventually be able to see some of this value and hopefully create some funding through either workforce development directly through the county or through other funding sources that they're getting right now and redirect them into this type of project. I don't know how clear that was, but essentially anywhere between 40,000 or so to just launch a much higher quality community engagement piece. We've been very, very focused on the urban farm production piece, and we are on top of that now. We have every single square inch of land is occupied by a farm this year and will be in full production, so we really want to focus our energy into community development and workforce development now. So.
And your organization again?
Yeah, it's the Center for Land-Based Learning, but my program is called the West Sacramento Urban Farm Program.
If I may ask a couple questions.
Yeah.
First, does it meet the requirements of 5 or fewer employees?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the farms, most of them are just owner-operated with 1 or 2 interns.
Okay, and what are your current funding sources?
Yeah, so right now each farm is on a different, so we have 5 different farms. Each farm is on a different type of land. So one's, the school district, one is on WSHDC low-income housing property. 2 of them are on private property, or Engstrom Properties owns one, Fulcrum owns one. And so each one of those farms, we've been doing corporate sponsorship. So we have Raley's as a funder, Nugget has been a funder, Bayer has been a funder. I've written a bunch of grants to the federal government for beginning farmer rancher development training programs, but with the Farm Bill cuts, that's gone out, which is actually putting a huge strain on our sustainability for this year. There's just been a lot of changes with the Farm Bill and the amount of funding that's available for those types of projects, and that's been a big challenge for the type of programming that we're having. So we are looking for, I'm trying to reach out now to Kaiser. I just had a meeting with Kaiser today. I'm really just going all out, trying to find ways to not just sustain it, but grow it in a more community engagement lens.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you so much for your time.
The next speaker card is Erin McEwen, is that correct?
That's me.
And you're with?
The Yolo County Children's Alliance. Yeah. So thank you guys for having me here. And yeah, to speak to Sarah's great project, they actually have been a work site for some of our WIOA youth. So that has been wonderful for them in learning job skills. So she did make that connection with our organization as well as the Three Sisters Farm too. So yeah, and so they're looking to grow too, so that's great. So and in terms of the CDBG fund from my perspective as the Homeless Services Coordinator at the Yolo County Children's Alliance, today we did the point-in-time count, right, for the unsheltered persons in West Sacramento, starting at 6 in the morning. But so when we're out there, I know we have this big permanent supportive housing project, which has been funded by the CDBG. That is just such a hopeful project in my perspective for our community, because of a lot of the people that are out there unsheltered have severe mental illness or severe disabilities, and without a supportive housing development, those people are pretty much very difficult to find housing for. So I think having this 80 so units being built on West Capitol, I think that would be a great use of these CDBG funds. In terms of affordable housing in West Sacramento right now, it's very small, as you guys probably know. There's 2 really low-income places that have accepted some of our people in the past few months, and that's Washington Courtyard and Courtyard Village on Evergreen, but those wait lists are now 6 months to a year wait. So in the meantime, we do have the wonderful Winter Warming Center, which referrals through Mark. But yeah, in terms of the CDBG fund, I would love to see some of that money, if not a lot of that money, go to the permanent supportive housing plan for West Capitol. So thank you.
Any questions, commissioners?
Erin, what was the count today?
I can't tell you that. Ask Mark, right?
I know, we'll hear at the next meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, any comments
Amber,
from the commissioners?
are there specific things that you're looking for from us, like do this and don't do that?
So what we're really looking for is, we don't have activities specifically at this point. Right now, we're kind of wanting to know which goals would you like us to focus on. Is it, let's really focus on our high priority goals, or let's focus on economic opportunities. So just kind of narrowing it down to at least the goal, and then we can analyze which activities would fall within those goals.
The trail to the Broderick boat ramp,
Yes.
is that completely funded? It's moving forward, environmental documents done, plans, specs, where are we with that?
Right. So I do have an update. So all of our environmental have been certified by City Council. Right now, we're waiting for permits on that project, but design is complete. We're waiting to hear back to receive our permits, which we're hoping to receive by the end of 2019. So we're hoping to start construction early 2020.
I'd just like to add, good evening, Chair Commissioners, that we received a SACOG grant, so we have full funding and we have a match appropriated. So it's just a matter, and actually the project is, there's additional funds, additional resources that have been mixed into the project. So we're actually doing safety improvements at the railroad crossing around 3rd and D, and doing frontage along C Street and 3rd, and doing some widening associated with the new bridge. So it's exciting project. It's fully funded. The permitting on the waterfront is always a challenge. So we have about a year left, we think, of the permitting, just to get our Central Valley flood protection permit.
Okay, so no more funding required on that one, huh?
We could still fund other, if Washington realized is something that you would still like to see have funding go towards it, you could recommend that. It's not like a one and done. Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, Chris?
Not to totally monopolize the whole conversation. Y'all can talk too. The city has done so much with the Washington district, and I think it's come a really long way, and I'm wondering if it continues to remain the high priority in face of, we're seeing more from the state about developing economic opportunities for lower income households, and particularly those in disadvantaged communities that are, grossly impacted by air quality and socioeconomic factors. My recommendation would be to switch those two. In particular, I was just at a meeting last week with mutual housing folks, and they were talking about the importance of working with people who have records to help them clean up their jail records so that they can qualify for jobs or get the driver's license back or doing things like that, and how important that work was. And I had no idea that that was even a problem.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And where are we with the permanent supportive housing?
So with permanent supportive housing, currently we're still aligning our funding for that project, but we have identified a site, and as you know from last update, we have a developer on board who we're working with, so we're hoping to start construction in 2020 for that project. We are currently applying for No Place Like Home funding for that project, which applications are due at the end of this month. We are currently getting our NEPA and CEQA clearance ready to go. But in terms of other funding, we'll be also looking to apply for low-income housing tax credits for the project. We are also reaching out to private health foundations to support the project as well. So it's still, we're just aligning our funding, getting our environmental clearances. That way we're ready to go to start construction.
Okay, so no funding required, huh?
We would anticipate there might be additional funding needed for the project. So that's always something that you could recommend to, that the goal still be for number one, for homelessness. But yeah, in terms of right now, like I said, we're still looking for additional funding. So if that is a goal that you would like us to consider, we can look into that.
Okay. Any comments?
Do we have budget documentation? Is there, who's the developer? Did they, and I apologize that I'm new to this, so if you've already provided this information in the past, do we know who the developer is? Is there a proposed budget? What would be the potential need for additional allocation of funds? So we would kind of be able to take that into consideration.
Yeah, correct. We're working with Mercy Housing of California. They're the developer of the project. In terms of costs for the entire project, we're looking at about $27 to $28 million. The city, with the 2017 and 2018 annual action plans, we've dedicated just over $1 million in funding for that. Partnership Health has, we have executed an MOU for $914,000 for that. We are also reaching out to other health foundations as well. In terms, we don't know, for No Place Like Home, we don't know an exact amount. And for low-income housing tax credits, we're not sure what we would be allocated. So in terms of a gap, we would need to know, we would need to know better numbers for that, but we're probably still looking around a $2 million gap for the project.
And CDBG, did I get it right that time?
Yes.
Yes.
But it can't be used to build buildings, right?
That is correct. It cannot be used for new construction. However, you can use CDBG funds for off-site improvements for a project.
Infrastructure?
Correct.
Yeah.
I have a question, a couple of them. Excuse me, sorry. One, I might have missed this in the longer report that was available in the agenda packet, but is there specific metrics tied to the reducing incidence of impact in the impact of homelessness to the CBDG funding, like number of beds created or number of unhoused reduced or something like that? Are there specific metrics?
Yes, that is correct. So there's different metrics that you can use, but creating beds is one of them. So for our permanent supportive housing project, we're creating up to 85 units of permanent supportive housing. So that number would be the metric that we measure our success by. Okay. I'm trying to think of other metrics.
Well, to help you out with that, I guess my point was, for this high priority, do you feel like you've been consistently meeting those metrics every year that you've identified this as the top priority for this funding?
Yes, we haven't met the metric yet because we have to wait until the project gets built in order to record that. But yes, we've projected about 85, so that's the 85 goal that we're trying to reach, is the 85 units.
Got it. Can any of this funding be used for triage shelter or any sort of expense like that space in between on the continuum from unhoused or unsheltered before you get them into the fully permanent supportive housing? Is there any room for that, or is that an ask?
You mean in terms of like the subsidy for it or services?
I'm not sure. That's why I'm asking.
Basically, in terms of what activities are eligible and what aren't eligible, if we can clearly demonstrate that the money is going to benefit low to moderate income individuals or households, and that we're able to meet one of our 4 objectives, we can definitely take that activity into consideration and just make sure we understand the exact parameters and take a look at it and see if we can do something like that.
Is a triage shelter as sort of like stopgap between like absolutely unhoused and then in permanent supportive housing, since it's not going to be built until 2020 just starting, right? Is that something that has been identified in a plan at all?
We have not funded a triage center using community development block grant funds, but that's definitely something that we can take a look at.
Any other comments? Well, there's a lot on the table here. You're looking for recommendations from this commission going forward. You mentioned Washington realized we could make that recommendation. We could also make the recommendation about permanent and supportive housing. And if we made those recommendations, you would come back to us with specifics, a plan going forward, a budget going forward?
Yeah, so that's correct. So the process of developing the annual action plan will take back your recommendation in terms of which goals that we really need to be focusing on. We're also meeting with the Parks Commission. We'll be doing the same thing, asking them to provide recommendation as to which goals. We will then start drafting the annual action plan, and when we draft it, we will include activities as to how they meet those goals of the consolidated plan, and then we will bring that draft annual action plan back to the commission. And at that point, the commission can recommend whether to move that plan forward.
Ron.
Hey, Commissioner Bell?
Thank you for the presentation. And my thought, I agree that the Washington realized it, could possibly switch places. And one of the things that I remember Aaron talking about at last year's CBDG funding was the rapid rehousing and some of these other really important uncovered areas where Aaron was struggling with financing. And because once these families become homeless, it's so much harder to get them into homes. And that was something that we sort of overlooked these last couple of years because we were so focused on let's get 80 houses. And I'm so glad that, we're getting closer. We've got Mercy Housing on board. I mean, this is so golden. We're good. And I understand that we still need to contribute towards that project of the 80, 85 beds, but I think that maybe we're at a place that maybe we can do some rapid rehousing, do some allocations so that these families don't end up in hotels, that they can get into another place. And also, of course, our hotels, I wish we could do something about those so that, those people that have to, as their only alternative to sleeping outside or being in our winter shelter, that those are safe and healthy. And so those are just a couple of things that I think that we should be also focusing on.
So would that play and be with Commissioner Keogh's
That's what I was
comments?
thinking too, is that, we've had several times this meeting where Shores of Hope has come in and talked to us about the importance of what they do in providing that emergency housing for a really short thing. And we've never been able to do that. But I think if we move the strengthen economic opportunities for lower income households up to number 2, it opens a lot of windows, potential for saying, yes, having a place to live means that you can go to work or continue to go to school, even if we're providing a short stop, if that's what you choose to do. But yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it covers all those umbrellas.
Commissioner Keogh, please.
Yeah, on number 3, and I think I remember reading something about like micro enterprise granting that was in the longer report. Can you elaborate a little bit on that and how it works with number 3? Because I might have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Just need a refresher.
Yeah, no problem. So with micro enterprise classes, we provided technical assistance to, so micro enterprise, I believe it's 5 or less employees. And so we provided technical assistance like how to manage a budget or how to build a business plan. And we provided those trainings. And then we also provided micro enterprise financial assistance as well in the form of in a form of a matching grant. So that's what we've previously done in terms of micro enterprise, and we use state CDBG funding for that. So we're entitlement now, and we have yet to use entitlement funding for our strengthening economic opportunities goal.
If you were to increase the amount of grants available, would you think that would have a larger impact than some of the other available opportunities that are out there in the same kind of category for number 3? Or does it meet that metric, I guess?
So our current metrics with goal number 3 is yes, if we were to provide grants or if we were to provide technical assistance, that would reach our outcomes, help reach our outcomes for that goal.
Mm-hmm. But an increase in the amount that you're doing, if we move 3 to number 2, for instance, if that became a high priority goal, the total increase of microgrants might, say double, just hypothetically. Do you think that would have the same impact that you're having now? Would the impact also double based on your best guess? I mean, you might not have the answer for that, but thinking about it, you know?
Right, yeah. So we're currently not offering that program.
Okay.
It was about 3 years ago that we offered that. So any increase would be, you know, we're starting from zero as of right now. So, and I just wanted to point out that in terms of moving low priority goals to high priority goals, the goals are already set, but we could just say that, you know, we focused on high priority goals, now we're going to be focusing on our low priority goals. So we wouldn't be moving them up or any of them down.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, no
Chair
problem.
Chair Price, sorry to interrupt. On a procedural note, I think we need to close the public hearing after the public comment.
Thank you. Thank you. Based on that comment, yes, I will close the public hearing, but staff can still
Yeah, absolutely,
you.
right.
Stand up there and be grilled.
and be grilled. So, again, a lot of discussion here. I don't have a solid recommendation, or to the commissioners.
I don't know
Commissioner
that this is.
DiCamillo.
Hi, I just wanted to basically reiterate what others were saying in terms of looking at goal number 1 in terms of the rapid rehousing and what, I mean, I would like to see some ideas about that. I mean, the consolidated plan talked a lot about how there's so many people right at that, you know, precarious position where, you know, a car repair or a medical bill, or I think it said something like $400 could just set them into a housing crisis. And, you know, in terms of reducing the incidence, it seems like a good goal to, in addition to helping those who are already homeless, preventing homelessness when it's such a, you know, people are in such precarious positions. So that seems, do you consider that aspect part of one, or is that sort of a separate issue? I guess I'm not sure.
I think rapid rehousing would definitely fall under the reducing the impacts and incidents of homelessness. But I'd also like to point out that if we are to choose an activity to provide a certain service or provide that activity, we would have to do a solicitation process for that activity. We couldn't fund a organization directly. So we would put it out in RFP or an RFQ, and then they would apply to provide those services, and then we would select them based on that application.
Is there anyone that's currently already solicited by the city of West Sacramento to do those services that you could extend their contract?
No, we currently do not have anybody that that we have under contract providing rapid rehousing, but good question, yes.
So, commissioners, is that the recommendation, that we should look further into rapid rehousing? Is that what I'm gathering from the commissioners?
And
Okay.
we're not asking for a vote, so it's
no,
just
just
this
a
feedback.
recommendation.
Yeah, just this feedback is great. Thank you.
Yes.
Unless you have, based on the conversation, gleaned a recommendation from what you've heard from us, other than the rapid rehousing.
And we celebrate the success of the Washington District realized and
Right.
maybe start putting a little more energy into number 3.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Sir?
So just a quick comment on the rapid rehousing. We understand that there is some funding available for rapid rehousing through the HEAP program and the CASH program, that they have had funding the previous year, and they do have funding for this year. So just something to consider.
Could you identify yourself, please? I know who you are.
Hi, yes, I'm sorry. I'm Raul. I'm a senior program manager in the housing department.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? So, Ms. Whitaker, do you have a takeaway?
So it sounds like the commission's recommending rapid rehousing, or recommending goal number 1 and goal number 3 to be focused on for the annual action plan.
Is everybody in
Correct.
agreement with it?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Whitaker. So, moving on to item number 4. Requests and comments from the commissioners. Any comments, commissioners? Okay, item B, staff updates.
Good evening, Chair Commissioners. I'm Katie Jacobson, Director of Economic Development and Housing. And first of all, I want to welcome and congratulate the new commission members this evening, and also welcome our new clerk, Ashley Boussart. She's recently joined my department. We're just so thrilled to have her, and she's just hit the ground running, which, as you know, is needed in West Sacramento, typically when you come to City Hall. So I just wanted to, for the new commission members, let you know that on February 19th, there's an orientation for all the commission members, and I'll be providing a lot more material at that meeting about the council's strategic agenda for 2019 and some of the issues and matters that we expect to come before your commission for recommendation over the coming year. Also, just to give you a high-level understanding, Economic Development and Housing Department manages economic incentive programs, business recruitment and retention. We manage the programs to support and incubate new businesses like business loans and job training, affordable housing policies and affordable housing projects, the housing element, programs that address homelessness, and aspects of parking, transit, and mobility as they relate to economic development in the city. So I'm going to be recommending some of those mobility projects. I know that they haven't always come before you, but they are really very important and critical to economic development efforts, and so I'd like to at least give you some visibility and allow you to make some recommendations where possible. The project updates I have, you may have heard that the streetcar, which was, again, a huge economic development project for our city, the bids came in about $75 million over budget. So it was a approximately 75% over cost estimate. So the streetcar JPA in both cities and the project management team have rejected all bids. And we are currently intensively working with the City of Sacramento and Regional Transit to analyze what new options and alternatives we might have if we are unable to move forward with streetcar. At this point in time, there's no potential for either city to make up that kind of funding gap. But we do have hope that we will come up with alternatives and assess whether or not federal funding is something that we would want to depend on for those alternatives. Our city, excuse me, does have quite a bit of funding encumbered for the streetcar, so it gives us a great opportunity to look at how that could be used on alternatives moving forward. But I will make sure that you get a presentation and an update on where we are with that project. Also, the council on January 16th approved an agreement with Jump Bikes. So we're going to have a shared electric scooter service in our city starting in a few very soon. And finally, the Washington Infrastructure Project is completing this month, and there'll be a large ribbon cutting event. I hope to get some speakers from the Climate Investment Fund to that. And that was a partnership grant with the Jamboree Housing West Gateway Place project, so they'll be attending, and you, of course, will be invited to that ribbon cutting. And that concludes my updates.
Thank you. I look forward to a presentation on the trolley project. I'd like to hear more about that. So look forward to that. Thank you. Any other calendars, events?
Yes, on January 29th, there'll be an ethics meeting in Chambers with a dinner that will follow for the commission members. And Ashley will email all of you with the final details on that. Those aren't available today. And then again, the February 19th orientation, I'll be participating in that as well. That's for the entire commission. That starts at 4 o'clock. And that's where I hope to have some materials for you. And then your next regularly scheduled commission meeting is March 27th. And to let you know, there's a 10-year anniversary party for the Recreation Center this week, this Thursday. at 6 o'clock at 2801 Jefferson.
Okay. Thank you. With that, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn. Can I have a motion, please?
I motion to adjourn.
Can I have a second?
A second?
Any discussion about adjournment? Good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.